of this innate disposition within them. Which is even why, if you look at the Soviet Union, which was, if you like, the biggest social experiment to try and impose atheism on a large scale. And what did it achieve? According to Pew, just a few months ago, they released some research showing that the vast majority of people still believe in God. In fact, it's increased after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. So religion is not something that you can get rid of by trying to impose atheism on people. It is just part of people's nature to worship God.
Or they will find something else to worship.
Yeah, like Stalin and Lenin.
They worship people, they worship football teams, they worship pop stars, movie stars. No, but it's the same thing. They'll put all their adoration and everything into that. And if that celebrity likes a particular brand of car, then they'll go and get that particular brand of car, which is why certain people sponsor football teams, because if, for example, Vodafone sponsor United or whatever, then whoever supports United is more inclined to go to buy Vodafone, because so this is the same thing, same principle.
I'll tell you why that's not true.
Why what's not true?
If you were brought up in a headhunting society, you wouldn't think twice of going and chopping somebody's head off to bring it. There's no morality in that.
Well, no.
If you were brought up in that society, that's it. You were saying that morality is something.
No.
Morality. If you were brought up in that society, you wouldn't think twice.
Right. So here's your problem. You have to define what morality is.
You've got to define. You were saying there's an absolute one, so you.
No, you asked the question.
You've got to define.
Did you ask the question? You said is there an absolute morality, isn't it?
You said that there is.
Did you ask me that question? Did you ask the question?
Said that there is.
Did you ask the question? Did you ask the question? But did you ask that question?
Yes, I did.
What's your belief, though?
Right. So do you understand your question?
So how would you explain the fact that people want to turn towards God? This is a universal thing we have. By universal, I don't mean literally every single human being, but every single language pretty much has a word for God. Every society has some sort of worship ritual. So from an atheistic perspective, how would you explain that human instinct?
God means different things to different people.
Because we didn't know any better.
Some people think God is a man.
The lightning came down, we went, oh, that's a God. Because we were ignorant. And
so it's God of the gaps.
So there's a God there to explain things we don't know.
God means different
now,
things to different people.
if that is the case, then we still have people believing in God even after the scientific revolution. And also, the belief in God is not just based upon logic. So, for example, somebody may say there's lightning that took place, so I don't really understand how this phenomena works. Therefore, I posit a creator. And some people have done this, it's known as God of the gaps. But a lot of other people, they don't even go that far. They say, I believe in God because it just feels right. They don't use inference or logic. It's just something within them. So how do you explain that instinct, not inference?
Why do you think it's an instinct?
Well, there's a lot of evidence for that, actually. Psychologically, we know that sorry?
Give me some.
Well, there's some research that was done a few years ago on Japanese school children, which showed that there's a tendency of children to basically incline towards theism. And there's a book published.
What's it called?
There's a book published by Oxford University called "Why Would Anyone Believe in God?" It's by Professor Justin Barrett of Oxford. And what he basically does is he, according to studies, says there's a natural inclination for people to believe in God. And likewise, there's Dr. Olivia Petrovich again from Oxford, and she's an atheist. And what she says is this. She says atheism is an acquired position, right? By default, there is a theistic inclination in children. She's a development psychologist. The interesting thing is, she herself is an atheist, and she says atheism is an acquired position. So my question to you is, as an atheist, how would you explain that innate instinct?
Okay, so I reject your claim that it's innate. And both of your examples, there's been refutations posted online and sent to yourselves. I don't know if you've got them on both of those.
Sent to
Aira, etc. Sure. This from Essence of Thought and others.
Sure.
So the claims are not what you claim, but they have an innate disposition to theism. What they have got is an innate disposition to believe in the supernatural and the superhuman.
Okay, that's
very
fine.
different.
Okay,
but
so
then you make an inference that it's a supernatural being. That's not
sure. But when we're here to have a discussion, it's very easy to throw out authorities and say Essence of Thought refuted you or whatever. What I want you to do is this. I want you to explain to me what you just said right now, which is that there is an innate disposition to believe in supernatural.
Right? I didn't say that. I said superhuman.
Superhuman. Okay.
So in other words,
superhuman. So, if there's an innate disposition to believe in something superhuman, something supernatural according to them, okay? So let's stick on that because we agree there.
We agree that it's superhuman abilities, yes.
Okay, they use the word supernatural, okay? That's what Dr. Olivia Petrovich uses. That's what Dr. Justin Barrett uses. Sorry?
I don't think that's true, but let's assume that it is.
Okay.
Do you know what the experiment or one of the experiments was?
Okay, wait. Let me just do this for a second. Before we move on, I just want to correct something that you tried to do, which is when you didn't have an answer, you just decided to throw out an authority. That's why I'm challenging what you said.
What did I not have an answer for?
Because when I asked you, why is there this instinct to believe in a creator?
Yes.
And I gave you some research for it, right? You just said, well, Essence of Thought refuted this, and this isn't exactly what they're saying. When I also gave you the example of the Soviet Union as well. So the idea that belief in God is instinctual, is innate, is something which psychologists and anthropologists and philosophers of science discuss. It is something which is being discussed. Now I agree. There are people who say it's nature. There are people who say it's nurture. There are people who say, what's the point of having nature and nurture? Maybe it's just there's a biological component of it. So what I'm asking you, rather than getting away from the topic, is, as a naturalist, which I'm assuming you are if you're an atheist, how do you explain the existence of the concept of God from a purely naturalistic point of view? How does natural selection gear for that?
Okay, so you've gone off slightly from what you originally said. You originally said that young children, because it's not everybody, so it's young children, have got an innate disposition towards it.
Well, the Soviet Union, which I was referring to, the study, they didn't say young children or old children. What they did say, according to Pew, is that after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the belief in God actually increased in Ukraine, in the Soviet satellites, in Russia itself. The belief in God and religiosity actually went through the roof.
How are you tying that back to us having an innate disposition towards God? Because originally
people are turning back to God.
Yeah. So how is that fundamental? How's that a foundation?
Okay, so
for the people are born with this innate disposition.
Just so that we don't talk past each other, let's agree on some basics. Do you agree there are people in the world, the vast majority of the people in the world believe in God? Okay, let's just agree with that. Okay, explain that from an evolutionary perspective.
As I said, because we didn't know any better, so it's our ignorance. We went, oh well, we don't know what it is, there must be something out there. God has evolved, hasn't it? There's millions of gods, there's different ones, they've evolved over time, and today we have generally the Abrahamic religions, which is like a single God, apart from Christianity.
Okay, so I asked you to explain that in terms of natural selection, but you haven't explained that.
Why would I explain it in terms of natural selection?
Because as an atheist, that's all you have.
Your claim was that we have an innate disposition towards God, and I asked you, give me some evidence.
Well, the evidence is the vast majority of people believe in God.
Can the vast majority of people be wrong?
Yes.
Okay, so that throws that argument out.
You're forgetting something. You're misrepresenting my argument. I'm not saying the vast majority of people believe in God, therefore belief in God is correct. I'm saying the vast majority of people believe in God, so from an atheistic perspective, how do you explain that?
I've just told you, if the vast majority of people didn't believe in God, would that make God not exist? Or would it be innate if the vast majority didn't believe in God? Because you seem to be claiming like an ad populum fallacy, which is because lots of people believe something, I need to explain why lots of people believe it.
Okay, wait, hang on. That's not a fallacy, and you're just throwing out that fallacy without actually understanding it. Scientists, what they do is they take a popular phenomena and they try to explain it. That's what evolutionary psychology is about, correct? Sure. Right? So what's wrong with me saying the same question which Steven Pinker or somebody else would say? Why does religion exist? That's essentially what I'm asking you.
And I've told you, I mean, do you want me to repeat it again?
Well, I'm saying your explanation is not in line with your worldview.
Why not?
Because your worldview is a naturalistic worldview, correct?
Yes.
So you have to explain everything naturalistically, correct? Sure. So can you explain that naturalistically? How does it give us survival value to believe in God? How does it make sense?
I'm not an evolutionary biologist or an evolutionary psychologist, so if you want to ask me the specifics, all I can tell you is...
But you believe in that, right?
I believe in what?
You believe that we evolved.
Yes.
That we evolved by natural selection.
Yeah,
you believe that, okay? So since you believe that, why do you give me an explanation of why you believe that?
Why do I need to give you an explanation?
No, why do you give me an explanation in line with your worldview or where that belief came from?
Which belief?
Okay, let's just go on some basics
here. Moving off to evolution. Your original claim to me was we have an innate nature to believe in God.
And what did I say?
Some studies.
And what did I say?
And I rejected that. And I said those studies are not.
Okay. Do you know what? Stand close to.
I'm going to put it on that.
We'll agree on something that I don't think you'll disagree with, which is the vast majority of people believe in God.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have a popular phenomena which we need to explain.
Sure.
Okay. Now, from an atheistic perspective, that there's no God and natural selection explains human evolution, right? How do you explain the fact that people believe in God? That was my question.
Yes, and I said to you because people are ignorant, they don't know any better, and they what's the word? They
look you're referring to God of the gaps.
Yes.
I'm asking you to give an explanation in terms of your worldview.
Have I not just given it to you?
No, you haven't.
Okay.
Well, you've actually...
Give me a clue as to what you're looking for.
Okay, what I'm looking for is this. If I was an atheist, what I would say is, well, I have to explain this using naturalism. So if I have to explain this using naturalism, I have to explain a belief in God in terms of survival and reproductive value, which is what Richard Dawkins tries to do, which is what Steven Pinker tries to do, which is what I would expect an atheist to do, rather than speak about God of the gaps. That's totally irrelevant.
So you want me to give you information on evolutionary biology or evolutionary psychology?
No, I want you to give me information which is in line with your worldview because you believe that worldview to be correct.
Sure. So
I asked you a question.
I don't know what you want me to give you. What words do you want to give me? I think that people have evolved over time, and over that period of time, when they couldn't explain something, they went, look up there. Like if I was born 500 years ago and I didn't know how electricity or lightning formed, I'd go, my word, that looks like that could come from a god or something because I can't explain it. It's very powerful.
Sure.
Maybe it's a god that did that because I don't know.
Sure.
Now we understand that.
Sure.
We no longer do that. And the more we push back with science, the less there is an explanation required for a god or gods.
Okay, so if what you said is true, and what I'm going to do now, Rob, I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to extrapolate it. What you just said is that people believed in God because of God of the gaps. And because they believed because of God of the gaps, as science is progressing, religion is regressing. Right? Is that in line with what is actually going on in the world?
Seems to be. Why would you say not?
Okay, here's why I would say not. According to Pew, by the year 2070, Islam is going to be the largest religion on earth. Christianity is also going to increase, and guess what? Your group, the atheists and agnostics, are actually going to shrink by 3%.
What?
So, if science is progressing, which I'm assuming which is what is happening today, then why is that happening? And I'll tell you why it's happening. Is because the arguments that you're putting forth don't actually make sense, such as people believe in God because of God of the gaps. Science explains how things work. God is an explanation of why things exist. So it's a category mistake, which atheists have been doing for a very long time, and the whole God delusion book is about that category mistake. And even other evolutionary thinkers like Michael Roos, he says, I find this embarrassing. And he's an atheist. He says, I find the God delusion embarrassing. To say that all of theism is based upon the fallacy of God of the gaps. That line of thinking does not make sense. So I want you to give a justification for your worldview based upon your worldview.
I don't know what else you want me to say. You keep asking the same question. I keep giving you the same answer.
Well, you haven't given me an answer though.
You're rejecting my God of your words, not mine. God of the gaps. I think people were ignorant.
No, wait. We moved on beyond that. You made another claim which I challenged. Your claim was, as science is progressing, religion should regress.
Correct.
Right?
Your claim is no, it's not.
Well, not me. According to Pew, by the year 2070,
why is that happening?
Islam. Okay, go on.
Why is that happening? You tell me. Your explanation is what?
Well, I'm happy to move on to why that's happening, but I want you to concede that you don't have an answer, and the claim that you made is actually false, which is, as science is progressing, religion is regressing. I'm happy to move on, but as long as you admit you're wrong.
Okay, so and your reason for suggesting that science is progressing and religion is regressing, your reason is because more people believe. More people are becoming theistic. Is that your reason?
Okay, what you've actually said there is a truism, right? Roses are roses. Of course there's an increase because people are believing. If they weren't believing, it wouldn't be an increase.
Correct, and the reason you say that is happening is because
I never said a reason. I just challenged your I just challenged your fallacious thinking that increase in the scientific worldview will actually decrease the belief in God, but it doesn't.
I'm saying that I'm talking about the knowledge, not necessarily that people will believe or not believe. So I'm talking about scientific knowledge, yes? That doesn't necessarily translate that everybody in the
so what's your claim about scientific knowledge? That it gets people to disbelieve it?
And it's growing. Would you agree with that, or would you say no?
No one disagrees with that's improving. But your claim was, it's growing and religion is going down.
Apparently science is going to make us stop believing. So you're basically claiming that the more we discover about science, the less we're going to believe in God.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's the point.
And the other thing is, the scientific method came together. It was actually made by a Muslim, Hassan ibn Haytham, approximately 1,000 years ago. He was a Quranic scholar, and he was the first scientist, according to even secular historians like David C. Lindbergh. Right? So, no, that goes totally against your claim, because if what you're saying is correct, then an atheist should have come up with the scientific method, not the Muslim.
And what was...
And atheists haven't done much, frankly.
Trying to separate science.
You haven't sent us to the moon, haven't done every technological advancement on the...
Okay, wait. Let me tell you, right? That's actually totally false, because of two reasons, right? Number one, we went to the moon based upon Newtonian mechanics. Guess what? Isaac Newton was not an atheist. He was a devout Christian, and the greatest thing that he believed he achieved in his life was to die a virgin, right? He was not an atheist.
Are you kidding me?
Well, secondly, the scientific method, its product is space exploration. So if we went to the moon, that's based upon science, and the first scientist was a Muslim. So atheists did not lead us to actually go to the moon.
Okay, so you've made an awful fallacy. You've said because Newton was a Christian, therefore Christianity is true, or Christianity is the basis, or something about Christianity and science.
Okay, anyone watching, did I say that?
Didn't say that. So.
Did I say that? No?
Okay,
did I say that?
Everybody else? Anybody else put up their hand? Do you want to speak to me, or do you want to have an audience participation?
We've got some independence. Let's see what...
I'm just really baffled.
You told me that because Newton discovered the laws, what?
He wasn't an atheist.
No.
So what?
Your claim was we went to the moon. We went to the moon.
That's completely irrelevant.
Okay, wait. What I want you to do is this. Take a step back. Think about it. What have atheists actually done? They keep talking about science, 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 you know, woo, 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 we're all about science. But what have you guys actually done? That's what I want to know.
All the technological advancements.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, because, tell me this, okay? If atheists are the people who we should be looking up to, and they are supposed to be holding up science as a banner, why didn't they come up with it? Why were the founding fathers of the fields of physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology theists?
Because that was...
Why? No, wait, let me finish. Then I'll ask you a question. Now, in the 20th century, when we've made so much progress, you guys have decided to come out of your caves and say, well, this is all due to us. And I'm kind of like, that's rich. That's really rich. Where were you for the last 1,000 years?
We were all theists, or we were all hiding from theists, weren't we?
Well, okay, we agree you guys were in the caves, right? But while you were in the cave, why couldn't you come up with the scientific method?
Yeah, stop shouting. Stop shouting.
No, because no.
Because this is an audience play for you. Just stop shouting.
Wait. All I'm here to do. No, shall I tell you why I'm speaking to you like this? Because you come to Speaker's Corner, and I've seen this a lot. I've even seen your videos.
Good.
You come and you try and confuse people with your nonsense. So I decided today I'm going to walk up to you. I'm going to walk up to you, and I'm going to get you to speak about your worldview on your own platform, and let's see if you actually know what you're talking about. So if you want me to speak a bit more calmly, I'm going to speak like a Quaker from now on. Good day, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, take it easy. Your claim was that where were all the atheists prior? And now we've come out of our caves, to use your word, and we're claiming credit for all the scientific discoveries. But
You are.
Your claim is that no, theists did all of this, and we should therefore be subservient, or theism is in some way justified to be linked with science.
No, I never said that.
What is your claim about theism then?
You made the claim, sir, that science is somehow linked to atheism, right? You linked the increase in scientific knowledge to a decrease in belief in God. All I did was challenge that.
Okay, now,
I'm going to be a Quaker, so if you interrupt me, I'll stop.
Okay, so that's not what I said. I said science is pushing back. In other words, the knowledge, where science is increasing, is pushing back the religious. In other words, some of the religious claims. I'm not saying that people in the world don't believe in God. Can we get that distinction?
Okay, so let's clarify. What's your claim? Your claim is science is getting rid of the intellectual foundations of religion?
So science is giving us a better understanding of the natural world, whereas in the past we would have looked towards a god or gods as an explanation. Now science is explaining things, and we need to less and less look towards the god. That does not mean that people are not going to believe in a god. That's the distinction.
That is predicated on the assumption that people believe in God because of God of the gaps.
Yes, sure.
Right? Where on earth did you get that from?
Everybody that I speak to here, everybody that I speak to, whenever they bring up something about science,
so you're judging.
They want to put God in wherever they can.
Remember,
so consciousness, rationality. How did evolution get started? The Big Bang, science, cosmology. Anything where we don't yet have an answer, now we can insert God. Where we have an answer, nobody here is going to claim that God is creating lightning. Why? Because we now have an understanding.
Okay. So, your belief that people believe in God because of God of the gaps is based upon your conversations that you have here in Speaker's Corner with people.
It's well, when we look back in history, isn't it? We can look back in history as well, and we can go, hey, people were mightily ignorant about virtually everything in the natural world.
When?
All the time in history.
No, that's not true.
So we didn't know about the germ disease. We didn't know that the Earth orbited the Sun. We didn't know there was more than one galaxy.
Okay, one sec. Now, there's one fallacy which we need to move away from and move on to another fallacy, which is about the ancients. Did you know the Greeks calculated the circumference of the Earth?
Not the Greeks, one guy, Eratosthenes. Yes?
Was he a Greek?
I don't know what he was.
Okay, who cares if he's Greek?
Well, there you go.
He's Fuegian, all right?
There's one guy.
But he existed 2,000 years ago. Okay, did you...
280 BC, yeah.
Okay, you're saying they didn't know that the Earth orbited the Sun? You're telling me no Greek knew that?
I don't know if the Greeks knew it, but most people didn't. You guys didn't.
Okay, wait, one sec. How do you think they built the pyramids? Using mathematics and engineering, correct?
We don't know, do we? It's still a mystery.
Okay. 1,000 years ago, and that's quite a long time ago, we had Hassan ibn Haytham, who came up with the scientific method. Now, when he came up with the scientific method, if his belief was, I don't want to explore nature because that will make me decrease my belief in God because I believe in God of the gaps, then he wouldn't have come up with the scientific method, and nor would the other Muslims who actually did science at the time, and then the baton was passed on to medieval Europe. Now, what I find strange is your claim of God of the gaps. I want to know if you actually understand where this argument originated from as a formal argument.
No, I don't know where it originated.
It was actually about 400 years ago. Yes, you do.
Okay.
It was actually in Europe, where Christian philosophers, they wanted an argument for the existence of God, and there was many arguments for the existence of God, which I would say were quite
fallacious, right? So one of them was this argument about, can you think of the most perfect being, and so forth. And one of the arguments that they actually came up with was the God of the gaps. And guess who critiqued them? Other Christian philosophers. We're talking about 400 years ago.
Was there any atheist philosophers at the time?
Now, yes, of course they were.
Were they?
Well, there was David Hume, right?
You took 400 years ago. He was a couple.
Okay, 400 years ago.
Let's keep
well, actually, about 2,000 years ago, some of the Greeks were atheists too.
Okay,
right?
we're going off on a tangent here.
We're not. Because what we're actually doing is this. We're unraveling some of the claims that you're actually making. And one of the things which I actually do want to challenge is this. Just recently we had this march about science, right? I'm sure you must have heard of it.
March about science, no.
You know, marching for science, right?
No,
and this march they had in the States where, you know, all these atheists come out and they're like, we're marching on the behalf of science, we're doing this, we're doing that, right? Now what I want to do is this. I want to make a claim. And I want you to challenge my claim if you think I'm wrong. I believe the vast majority of atheists who believe in Darwinian evolution, or they claim, you know, we believe in science, we believe in this, they believe in it not because they understand it, not because it makes sense, but purely because they've been socialized into it. And I'm going to make a secondary claim which is going to be very particular, which is I do not believe you understand anything about Darwinian evolution and you only believe in it because of socialization. Now that's a claim.
Correct.
So are you willing to challenge that claim?
Sure.
So I want you to tell me, how does bacteria lead to us? Why?
How does bacteria lead to us? Through the process. Now, if you're going to ask me, I'm reading a book, 2 books actually at the moment. So I know you're the evolutionary guy, and I know...
No, I'm not the evolutionary guy.
Well, you debated Aaron Ron, you're one of the evolutionary guys. So one of the things you come to do here is try and steer towards evolution. So I will tell you up front that I'm not an expert on evolution. You know more potentially about it. You can get into finer details. What I will tell you is that I'm reading the book Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne.
I've got that.
Good. So maybe you need to debate Jerry Coyne on evolutionary psychology,
right,
etc. And also Dr. Alice Robbins.
Okay, so in that book, Why Evolution is True.
I'm reading it, yes.
Right, you're reading it, right? Yes. How many definitions of species are there?
I don't know, I'm not there yet, brother.
Okay.
Now you're going to cross-question me on the book. I said I'm reading it.
Okay, but I'll tell you.
Fine, go ahead.
There's at least 26. Okay? Now, if there's 26 different definitions of species, and the claim is, which I made originally, that people believe in Darwinian evolution, majority of atheists, including yourself, not because they understand it, because they're socialized into it. I want you to tell me which of those definitions, not 2 or 3, just tell me one of those definitions which Darwin used in The Origin of Species, okay, which is the reason why you accept that the origin of species is correct.
Okay, so I want you to get away from this. You do this a lot. You keep going into Darwinism. Today it's the modern theory of evolution. Why do you keep talking back about Darwinism? It's like Nazism. People have moved on. The modern theory of evolution is a lot further advanced than what Darwin predicted in his time.
So
would you agree with that? Genetics, DNA, etc. I'm not saying Darwin's wrong. It's been improved.
Sure, but that's a good question.
What I'd love to hear you say in the future, Sabur, is talk to people about the modern theory of evolution. Get rid of the word Darwinism, because that seems to me a straw man.
Okay, that's a very good point that you've made.
And I'm going to answer the rest of it.
No, wait, 1 sec. That's a very good point that you've made, but it's incorrect, and I'll tell you why. The term Darwinism is not a term which I came up with. It is a term Alfred Russel Wallace, who was Darwin's contemporary, who disagreed with Darwin on human evolution, he coined. And till today, we have atheist evolutionary biologists, psychologists and philosophers of science who use the term Darwinism as an academic term which refers to the idea that natural selection is the primary driving force of evolution. And they acknowledge the modern synthesis, of course. They include the subfields of population genetics, fossils, DNA, all of that, right? That's not the issue. The issue is Darwinism as a term is an academic term. So when I actually use it, I'm not using it in a derogatory way like Nazism. And also you need to understand the reason why I use the term Darwinism or Darwinian evolution is because there's many different alternatives. So when we speak about the modern theory of evolution, if you said, Rob, well, refer to the modern theory of evolution. Well, which modern theory? Because we have orthogenetic evolution, we have evolution by natural genetic engineering, we have neo-Lamarckian evolution, we have neo-mutationism, we have evolution by self-organization and the acquirance of entire genomes. We have all these different evolutionary models. Most of them are non-Darwinian. So when I use the term Darwinism, it's not in a derogatory way, nor is it playing games, and Aaron Ra doesn't know what he's actually talking about, which is why in the debate he couldn't actually, all he could say is, well, you see in America there's a different definition to Darwinism than there is in the UK. That's pretty much all he said. So the reason why I make this distinction is because atheists who go around talking about this theory like it's the best thing since sliced bread do not even know the basic definition. So my original claim that the majority of atheists don't even understand Darwinism, including yourself, has just been proven correct.
If you think so, that's fine.
Because you don't know the basic terms.
I'm reading the book. Do I need to be an expert on everything? If we have a cosmological, if I bring my friend here who's a cosmological expert and he says to you, oh, well, you don't understand this, that means it's proven right? Come on, Sabur.
No, why?
Just because I don't know specifics.
I'm making a particular claim. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I've told you.
You only believe in it because of socialization. You don't understand it.
I believe in it because it's a naturalistic explanation for how we get here.
Sure.
I am reading books on it. That's why
So you understand it? Are you making that?
Understand it fully.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Just admit it. You don't understand it.
Does anybody understand anything fully, to use your term?
That's fine. Do you know what you call that? You call that basically just pressing the red button to make everything explode. Well, we don't really know anything, you know. Is that leaf really green? Well, if you really... Well, oh, sorry, I am a Quaker. Is that leaf really green? Because it actually kind of looks like it's a reflection in all the other colours in the spectrum have actually been observed.
So
he's making sense, actually.
No, actually, what I'm doing is this. You have your little YouTube channel, speakers, whatever it's called, right? You come around here, you're trying to talk to people, right?
Yes, I have.
I came here just to show you do not have a clue what you're talking about. Unless if you want to challenge that, that's fine, or else I'm going to walk away with that last bottom line. You do have no idea how Darwinian evolution works.
I have a basic idea, that's it. If you're going to question me...
Okay, let's check your basic idea. What's your basic idea?
Natural selection through mutation, that's the basic idea.
Natural selection through mutation.
Through mutation, yeah.
Natural selection through mutation. Okay, let me tell you.
Going to question.
No. Let me tell you that. Let me just tell you something. And do you know what? I'm not someone who gets angry often, right? But I'll tell you something that just really pissed me off.
Go for it. Please do.
When somebody tries to make claims and you shoot down those claims, and then as you've beaten them on the floor, they decide to shout something back at you. You're like, huh, what did you say? And then they try and defend themselves. So you're telling me the basic that you understand about Darwinian evolution is this. It's natural selection plus mutation. Well, guess what? That's not even Darwinism. It's natural selection plus random mutations.
So what?
If it's natural selection plus mutations, guess what it becomes? Epigenetics.
So
orthogenetic evolution. So even you yourself, even though you were slapped on the floor, you said, no, I do understand something.
Come back to the Quaker.
Oh, I'm a Quaker, sorry. And you do come back to something, which is, I do understand something basic, which is, I'm not going to give you any evidence of how biodiversity came, how, biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, biochemistry, linguistics, how all of this fits within the evolutionary model. I'm just going to tell you, this is what I understand, 2 frigging terms, mutation and natural selection, and you still got it wrong.
Quaker.
You still got it wrong. So like I said again, sorry, I should be a Quaker.
So effectively you don't know the basics.
No. You stripped down evolution to 2 terms and you got them wrong. So here's what I'm going to do. You don't understand Darwinian evolution. You've only been socialized into it. That's my claim. If you're not challenge that claim, I'm going to stay. If you don't want to challenge it, I'll walk away, and that's the bottom line. You and the rest of those atheists, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Darwinian evolution is a trick.
Okay, so...
Are you going to challenge my claim?
Sure.
Go on.
Okay, so the reason why we believe in naturalistic processes is because most of the things that have been explained on this planet have been explained through natural processes. So is it reasonable to believe that we can explain most, if not everything, within our universe in some naturalistic way?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'm actually totally happy to move on to that question. It's a separate discussion. So let's close the previous discussion and start this.
But you asked me the question,
Sure.
why do atheists believe in evolution?
Sure.
Because it's socially constructed.
Sure. Okay, now let's move on to this discussion about naturalism.
But that was the answer.
So you said most of the things have been explained via naturalism.
Correct, yes.
Correct. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say.
Agree or not?
I'm just going to say something. Not only do atheists not understand Darwinian evolution, they don't even understand science. And I'll tell you why. Most of the things can be explained naturalistically. Can reason be explained naturalistically?
It's a naturalistic byproduct, isn't it? A byproduct of naturalism.
That's an assumption.
But now you're going on to something different. I said most of the things...
You said most of the things can be explained naturalistically, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Most things in our natural world.
Okay. Yes. Our ability to reason, can it be explained naturalistically?
There are theories, as far as I understand, like emergent materialism, like evolutionary reliability.
Emergent materialism?
These are some of the theories.
Emergent materialism?
These are some of the theories.
What the hell is that?
Have you not heard of that?
I do know exactly what that is, but that's got nothing to do with this discussion.
You're asking me what...
You're using... Do you know what you're doing? Sorry, I'm a Quaker. Thank you. I need this guy next to me. He's so calm.
Yeah, I'm the calm one.
Okay. I got so angry I lost what I was saying. What was I actually saying?
You're talking about this...
No. Emergent materialism. So here's why, as a Quaker, I feel like breaking my biscuit rather than getting peed off. This is what atheists do. When they don't understand something or when they want to sound clever, they throw a term out. Emergent materialism. Emergent materialism is an explanation, a type of explanation for consciousness, not the origin of reason. So what you just did is, when you didn't know an answer, you just decided to throw out a philosophical term to sound clever. The origin of reason, according to atheists themselves, including Alex Rosenberg, who is a full-out atheist, militant atheist according to him, who actually is an anti-theist. He's a philosopher of science. This is what he says. He was sitting in a meeting, and the meeting was called Moving Naturalism Forward. In the meeting, you had all of the atheist pimps. You had Richard Dawkins. You had that old guy who should be in a coffin, Steven Weinberg. You had all these different people sitting down. And while he's sitting there, they were talking about moving naturalism forward. Alex Rosenberg, everybody had to put out an issue on the table, which is an issue which is outstanding for naturalism to move forward. And guess what Alex Rosenberg said? We have no explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so let's break it down. What is
I'm a Quaker, sorry.
Yeah, you've forgotten. That's okay. What do you understand by the origin of reason? What do you mean by reason?
Okay, again, we've moved on. I am happy to move on to this discussion. Totally happy. But as long as you concede that it's a different discussion to what we're having, that's fine.
You brought it up. I didn't bring up reason, did I? I said
no. You said everything. You said things. You said most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically.
I said most things in the world we can explain through the scientific method or naturally. Yes.
Okay, naturally. All knowledge is self-knowledge because it goes through you. And what does it go through? A reasoning process. So all I asked is this. Is there an explanation for the origin of reason? You said yes. And I just showed you that even according to atheists, there is none.
So explain to me what reason is, because you...
That's fine. I'm happy to move on to that discussion.
No, that's part of the same discussion.
No, I am happy to move on to that discussion as long as you concede on another point that you have no idea what you're talking about.
If you're going to keep saying that, then I think there's no point in continuing this talk, because when I ask you a question and as part of your initial assertion, then you say we're moving off.
No, because what I want to do is this. What I want to do is this. Another thing that atheists do is this. They always run off to a different topic. The topic that I want to speak about right now is this. You made a claim that most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically. And I asked you about the origin of reason. You said that too, and I showed you not that. Now you're asking me, what is reasoning, or what is the origin of reason? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say, Rob, you know what? Fantastic. We had a great conversation. I'm going to go back to my Quaker mode. We'll move on to that. I'm happy to do that. But that's a separate discussion. That's all I'm saying. That's a separate discussion. I'm happy to go into what the origin of reason is from my understanding. Totally happy, but it's a separate discussion.
Yes, and your claim was that I can't account for it. That's correct?
My claim was that your claim that things can be explained naturalistically.
I said most things.
Most things?
Yes.
Right? I said the origin of reason cannot. And reason is the thing that you use to get all other knowledge. Okay? Now, in terms of the origin of reason, number one, this is an incredibly difficult area. You have philosophers, you have psychologists which actually delve into it. They try and understand what is it even to reason. And they don't even have their definitions clearly specified. They do not even agree on ways on, okay, what is it linked to? Is it just the mind, or is it something more than that? You know, it gets into that discussion of, mind matter. So what I do want to say is this. From an atheistic, Darwinian, materialistic point of view, the origin of reason is a thorn. And do you know the first person to note that this is actually a really big problem was actually Darwin himself? Because Darwin said, how can I accept that, the convictions of a monkey's mind? How can I accept that? How can I accept our own convictions in our mind if we evolved and we have a common ancestor with them? Now, the co-founder of the theory of natural selection, along with Darwin, Alfred Russel Wallace, another atheist, he actually moved away from Darwin, which is why we call it Darwinian evolution, not Darwin and Wallace's theory, how it was known in the Victorian times, because he moved away from Darwin. He said Darwinian evolution is true for everything except human beings. And why did he say this? He said this because of savages, which they used to call anybody who was basically in South America or Africa, right? Savages, if you take them to Europe, they can do maths, they could do physics, they could do psychology. So Alfred Russel Wallace said, do you know what? Darwinism cannot, or natural selection cannot explain this reasoning capacity, which is way more than you need for survival and reproduction, which is why he moved away from Darwin. Now what actually happened was this: Darwin got peed off, so he wrote a letter to Alfred Russel Wallace, and do you know what he said? He said, don't murder our child. Because if you both come out and you say this is our theory, and one of you says, actually I don't think it makes sense in terms of human beings, you make the theory look bad. So the origin of reason, it is a very complicated area, but the bottom line is, from a Darwinian perspective, there is no explanation.
Let's assume for the sake of argument that there is currently not an explanation for that. Is that okay?
No, we're not going to assume.
No, we're not going to. Okay.
We are going to say, from a naturalistic point of view, it is impossible to give a origin of reason explanation in terms of survival and reproduction.
Does it need to be just survival and reproduction?
Well, what you could do is you could reject Darwinism and go with something else.
No, I'm just asking, does it have to be on that? Because remember, we've moved on from just survival and reproduction, haven't we? We're not just in a survival reproduction mode, if you want to call it that, now. Would you agree with that? We're not just doing that now.
Well, yes, but also what you need to understand is, from a Darwinian perspective, when there is something which sticks out like a thorn, which is not survival and reproduction, it is so easy to give a label to that mystery and say it's an evolutionary byproduct. So hospitals, survival of the unfittest, evolutionary byproduct. If you do that, there's no point in having a conversation, because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Because anything that fits in line with survival and reproduction, you say, hey, that's mine, survival and reproduction. Anything that doesn't, you say, well, it's a byproduct.
No, but we could do exactly what you said, which is we could say, hey, it's a mystery, we're still trying to work out how that is.
No, I don't want to say it's a mystery. I want to say, from an atheistic perspective, it makes no sense. And since atheists pretend to be clever, and they pretend to be rational, and they pretend to throw out terms which they don't understand, then how dare they claim they are rational when they can't give an explanation for the origin of reason? When I, as a Muslim, I can say, well, do you know what? Have a good day. If you want to pretend to be clever, that's absolutely fine, but you can't even give an explanation for the origin of reason.